You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
I got a weird countdown on my screen.
Yeah, just ignore it.
Okay, good. People don't really recognize the fact that, even if in your mind and your heart you want to attract all these different people, but your Marcom is a bunch of tall, skinny white people because that's the stock photography that's out there. Well, guess what? You're reinforcing that message. And it's hard. I know it's hard. It's hard to do a photo shoot and pay and bring all these other people in that, you don't see represented in your studio right now. But if you want to grow your studio, if you really want it to be an inclusive place, you might have to do a little extra. Sorry, that's the way it goes.
Right. And I think it's also a matter of putting ourselves intentionally in groups and in situations where we are going to meet different people and different groups of people and be open to that. So that, I was actually looking through my last bunch of live streams and my last bunch of interviews, and I was like, oh, I have a lot of women of color on my live stream. And I have to tell you that I didn't necessarily do that because, right? I did that mostly because those are the people in my networking group. Those are literally the other women who I hang out with in my networking groups and in my communities. So who else am I going to ask? I'm going to ask, of course, the experts I know and love and who know and love me. And it just so happens that I was really happy kind of about how diverse my community is.
Well, isn't that the thing, right, Linda? That's the thing. We create the communities that we want to exist in. And if we know that the community doesn't represent who we want to be around, then we have to act to change it. It's an action. It's a verb. We must do something to make that change happen. And if we don't, then nothing changes, everything stays the same, and we continue to speculate as to why our community just looks like us.
Exactly. I mean, what I'm hoping is happening on the PMA side is that soul searching is happening. Because yes, there's been a leadership change, and yes, she's awesome. But there's a whole structure in place that is set up, that I hope it allows for change.
Well, and I think, does it remain to be seen? Of course it does. We just don't know what's going to happen. We know that there are other forces waiting in the wings to see, what happens when Carla Harris leaves. Who comes in as the ED? What's next? But at the same time, here's my point of view. If we want things to change, we have to participate. That the PMA was having listening tours at the beginning of the year. And listen, I understand why nobody wanted to touch it. I didn't want to touch it. But that they were having listening tours, and out of a membership of 5,000, only 14 people were showing up at one and 17 at the other. That says a lot.
Right.
We have to build the community that we want to be. Again, and that comes from showing up. Now, I am not saying that people need to put themselves into a position where they feel like it's dangerous or uncomfortable to their heart and soul to do that. The PMA harmed a lot of people. Just like the whole classical contemporary divide harms people. All of these things that go into it. Our industry has some big issues. And we have to start addressing them. The way to address them is to, look honestly at what they really truly are, and, not hide in the corners and not just play with the smoke and mirrors that we can, hide behind and blame everybody else either. We all have to take responsibility.
Right. And be intentional. I almost feel like the way that we run teacher training in Pilates leads to people not really questioning much, because we sort of, a path gets laid out for us in teacher training, right? That Then you're going to go and you're going to open your studio and you're going to teach. That's kind of what you do.
Right.
Maybe you teach for somebody else. Maybe you do your own business and rent, get a job overseas, whatever. But that's the path set in stone. Now we know, number one, the path is very different. Right? Now we have the opportunity to not just reach our local areas, but reach the entire world.
Yep.
With what we're doing. And that, my friends, is where you really need to start thinking about how you speak, how you're out there, who you're hanging out with, what groups you're in, because when you're on the world stage, your audience is very diverse and very different.
Right. Agreed. And I think what you're saying about the teacher training angle is, and there's so much to be said about teacher training. I think that people are often looking for somebody with all the answers, right? Somebody that's almost a guru of sorts. Somebody that's at the top of this hierarchy that, I can turn to, and they have all the answers, and the sky's open and the stars align and everything is right in the world. But that's not realistic. There's no one way. And if we go into teacher training wanting to learn to teach human beings, not just bodies, but we're not curious, how do we grow? How do we make sure that we are bringing the most that we can to the people that we're working with? And that curiosity from us extends to our students too, right? If they see us being able to be broad-minded versus, this is the only way to do it, lady. And if you can't do the roll up the way I say to do it, you will be excised from the building. You're done. That's
right.
It sounds.
And I will not send you to that contemporary teacher up the road.
Oh, heaven forbid.
Because I don't like their apparatus. And even though she actually might be so much better for you than I am.
She actually is a Pilates Satanist. Like, we can't have her. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's so silly. Like, just do good work. Do good work. It's not that hard.
Right. Just do good work. Exactly. I mean, and there's also, I think, another big thing too, as I've kind of grown in my business sense, right? And I mean, God, when you knew me, Misty, like, I was like lucky that I was like successful in business, because my knowledge of how to actually run one and manage people was slim to none.
We all
but
know, right?
Now we do. But now I realize that, number one, we can't all be generalists. Yes, Pilates is great for everybody, and we know that. And it's very interesting how we will, in our brains, think about the kind of client that we want to see or work with, or what they look like and what they might be like. But the minute that I talk to people about niching down and getting like an ideal client avatar, they're like, no, Pilates is for everybody. And I'm like, well, of course it is. But number one, if you look at your studio, what you're going to see is pretty much a lot of the same clients.
Right.
Okay, which is, number one, telling you that you're saying the same stories to the same people who are sending over their friends, telling the stories to the same people. And that's what you have, and if you're happy that way, that's great. Like, whatever. That is can be a successful business.
Sure.
But if you're not, and if you're feeling like you want to deal with different kinds of people, different kinds of bodies, whatever that looks like for you, then you need to focus in, right? And once we focus in, I don't know why that scares us so much, since we tend to generally be pretty focused and not worry about it.
I think it's the idea of committing to that focusing in. See, from my experience, like you said, people are telling the same stories to their people who are like-minded and typically need the same things that they do. So whether you plan to niche down or not, you get niched down, right? That's just what I see. So then you know, I found that people tend to then pursue, well, those that do pursue continuing education, that's another thing I can talk about for a month and a half. But, those who decide to go ahead and take the extra step end up pursuing continuing ed that further defines that niche, but they don't want to call it that because heaven forbid that they don't want to be, called the rehab studio or the post rehab or whatever it is. Again, it gets down to semantics in a way that is limiting for some. I just say everybody ends up niching down. Except,
do.
I don't want to say everybody. I would say that they're generally people in like the big box type of studios. They don't niche down because they don't have to, because they're teaching 35 people at a time. But I think generally in a boutique environment, people will find their tribe.
Right. And you kind of have to find your tribe. Otherwise, you're just way too all over the place. And again, that's going to show up in who your clients are.
Right. Well, and we say all the time, there's enough business for everybody, which is true. You can have 10 competitors on the same street, because if you've defined your niche properly, you're going to find the people that need to find you will find you, and the ones that don't will filter to other places. That's what we want, ideally. That's what I want. I don't want to have to do like a trial for every single person that comes in and be like, oh yeah, definitely go to the person up the street. Like, if I'm doing the right things in my communication and just how I'm showing up, then the right people find me, I reach them, and it's a good thing. If I'm all over the place, just a hot mess out there in the marketplace, then, there's a lot of churn. I don't want to deal with churn. I want to build relationships.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, do you want relationships or do you want churn? Do you want to be able to email somebody 20 years later and be like, I am so happy that you're doing so well, and can I interview you? Because we need to talk about all of this stuff on my live stream. Or are you burning bridges every time you turn around?
Right.
And again, that's not stuff that just happens, my friends. That is stuff that we intentionally set ourselves up for and intentionally do. Even if you look at some of the major moneymakers and major players within Pilates, you see where there's been some niching. Even if you look at Club Pilates, right? Now, I refuse to denigrate Club Pilates. She had a great idea. She turned it into a sellable franchise. Lots of people who can only afford to pay like $40 for a Pilates session are doing Pilates like 3 times a week now because of her and because of that. It may not be my thing, but I can't feel bad about that happening, because, again, if we're not in a space where there's competition, you're not in a space where there's any money to be made. I think we all need to remember that.
That is a very, very sound point. And, listen, I think in these dog-eat-dog times, you do what you can do. What my issue with Club Pilates is, well, I have several, but that's just me. My biggest issue is just the lack of clarity. So saying that you're teaching somebody the whole Pilates system, but you're leaving out 2/3 of the exercises because you've got 12 people in a room and you can't keep people safe, you're not offering what you're selling. And that affects the rest of us in that, there are people that are out there and they do want to be generalists and they just want to work out because their neighbor on the cul-de-sac wants to work out, so they can go do Pilates together, and that's great and whatever. But there are other people out there that need Pilates for what Pilates is. And if you're offering that $40 class because somebody can get in and afford it, but you're telling them that they're going to get X out of it and they just can't because that's not what you provide, that's a problem for me.
Yeah, I mean, I have a problem with that too, but some of me also says that stuff will wash itself out in the marketplace, right?
Well,
because a lot of those folks will stop going, hopefully, and find people like you, people like me, and people who can, take it. But again, that's because some of the rest of us are out there being very intentional in our messaging. of who it is that we, and how it is that we care for our clients.
Right. Right.
I love what you said earlier about having the tree. That you can't talk about equality of fruit if everybody doesn't actually have a tree.
Right. Right.
We can't talk about equality within the Pilates community if, again, not everybody is coming from the same basis and the same background, period.
Right. Right. And, again, when we look at the pitfalls that our industry is going through, and listen, it's a baby industry at this point still. There's a lot of growing pains to be had, but we're so fractured. The division in the business is so great, and we're so good at looking at the most minute of BS rather than actually thinking about what will help us grow and be sustainable long term. That we're not thinking about the tree. We're not thinking about how we as a collective industry grow and become fortified so that we can weather storms like what happened last year. Last year was wholly destructive to the Pilates world, and that people are trying to get back to where we were last year is equally destructive.
Exactly.
Because where we were last year was crap. It was shit. And getting back to shit is not really what I consider to be growth.
Right. And, this is where I've been having very interesting discussions with my clients in Pilates Teacher Mastermind VIP. All of the coaching calls lately have been around this question of whether people really want to go back into a studio.
I mean, it's a fair question, isn't it? For
it
so
is.
many.
I don't, actually.
No.
Don't. Been doing it for 30 years. Hiring myself as of September 1 to just teach Linda Lippman Pilates. But,
Congrats.
thanks. Full time, as the only thing. But I have no desire to go back. And when I've been talking to my coaching clients, most of them are in that place too. Everyone's saying things like, well, I guess I could maybe like a day a week rent somewhere in that actual tone of voice. Like, yeah, maybe. And I'm like, yep, feeling the exact same way.
It's been hard. And you know me, Linda. I like a challenge. I like any challenge. I like challenges for the sake of liking challenges. But at some point, you have to know when to say when. And I had, did I lose you there? 2 very big, very expensive commercial leases.
Mm-hmm.
And did I need that? There was a part of me at a time in my life where I really did need that. I needed to know that I could do it. And there's something to be said for that. But, as we evolve, as I've evolved, what I realized is if I can still do what I do best, which is teach and help people evolve and mentor and all of these things, if I can do this without $10,000 a month going out to a building that I don't even own, that a landlord can just literally change my life on a dime, why do I want to do that? I am working with people all over the planet now. I'm doing some of the best teaching of my life, and I am loving teaching in a way that I hadn't loved it in years. I see it as winning. I myself am winning. Do I have the big shiny sign? No. And you know what? That sign was damned expensive. I don't want to spend money on the sign when I can spend the money on other things, like continuing to hone my personal craft so I can share that with others.
Right. So Teresa Tronzo just asked if we could talk about why we don't want to go back into the studio. a little bit more. And actually, I think that's an interesting question, because some people I know really were like, oh, I want to get back to the apparatus. I really want to do that. Some of it I think is just time, right? Like, I've been doing it for 32 years now. You've been at it for 20 years now. And also that we started to see, I don't know about you, Misty, but my clients are doing great. Like, my clients are doing really well, and they're really happy. And they're doing, I got them on bands and tubing and weights and Thai fours and magic circles. They got their rollers, their balls, their bands. Some of them have Pilates equipment because they can, and some don't, but it doesn't matter. Their bone density is going up. Everyone's, getting stronger, feeling and functioning better, which is all I want for them in the studio.
Right.
And I agree with you that I'm teaching some of the best Pilates of my life, because I have such a good view of what people are doing, because we really are alone in the Zoom space, where I can really cue them the way they need it without worrying about an apprentice hearing a bad cue, or a non-traditional cue, or whatever that looks like. And so for me, the schlepping over and the cleaning the equipment, and I'm like,
well, and I would say too, a lot of people need that normalcy as their ground. They're wed to the idea of what normal looks like, and desperate to get back to it because that's what they know. And so it's scary to deviate from that path. I can understand that. I also think, though, I know for myself, again, loving all challenges, we were back online in 3 days after we were shut down, because I'd done a little bit of teaching here and there online for private sessions. And I thought, how different can it be? It's not different. We keep our online sessions small, no more than 5 people. I have equipment rented out because I had 2 studios. I had to rent it all out. Some of it I sold, some of it I rented. Bands, balls, rollers. What I have loved about this is that it put an emphasis back on the mat work, because for some reason we decided in Pilates land that mat was not important. Mat was something to be cheapened out because, we can fill a room and then only charge $6.92 for a class. And then we wonder why people can't even getting back to the equity piece, why people can't get into Pilates as a career, because we've made it so that the only way you can do that is to take out a loan for $30,000 worth of equipment. Well, who?
Right. Or do a lease.
Right. Yeah. And then a commercial lease where, newsflash, you have to sign a personal guarantee on most commercial leases. It is not just a through your LLC or your S Corp or whatever it is, that if you go bankrupt, your lease goes away. No. A personal guarantee, as I'm sure I told everybody, but a personal guarantee means you're on the hook for every penny of it. That is a barrier to entry. This is one of the reasons why we don't see Pilates in communities that maybe can't afford it. I wouldn't spend $30,000 on equipment plus the lease, the this, the that, to move into a neighborhood where I know the people that were there could not afford to pay what I need to be charging to recoup any of that. Business isn't free. I mean, we don't just do that for shits and giggles. We do that because we are also trying to live.
Exactly. And then we end up kind of denigrating Matt, which is interesting. Like, the number of Pilates teachers who send me DMs and are like, you really charge the same for mat as equipment? And I'm like, okay, number one, people are paying for value. They're paying for results.
100%.
And I can get them, Misty, you've been in my studio a lot. I can get people results much quicker than they can on their own. Period, end of discussion. That's it. And that's what they're paying for. So they don't really care how I get them there, frankly. They
Well,
don't
and
care
they
if it's
don't know.
apparatus. They don't care if they're doing bands. They don't care if I'm making them sit and stand off a chair.
In
They
a
don't
lot of
care.
cases, they don't even know what it is because they've come to you as the expert. So you as the
Exactly.
expert are saying to them, you know what? Okay, so if you're on that piece of equipment, I'm this much money because I'm that good. But when you're on the mat, I'm only like 1/3 as good. So that's why I'm going to charge you less over here. That it doesn't make sense. It's beyond the pale of stupid. I too have been charging the same rate for Matt for years now. And I remember when I was like, this is crap. I'm not charging any less for Matt. And my clients were like, so you think you're that good? And I'm like, not only do I think I'm that good, but I think the work is that good. This work is that good. And if you're not getting this mat piece, you are having a huge deficit in your growth. So no, this is what it costs. You stay, you leave. I don't care. At some point, we as business owners have to draw the line and we have to say, this is what's best. Trust me. If you trust me, I will not lead you wrong.
Exactly. And that's where, I think a lot of Pilates teachers, you do need to make it about you. Like, our business is us. Linda Lippin Pilates LLC is who? This one. Like, I can't hide anywhere else. There's no other identity I'm taking. My business is me. Period. End of discussion. And yes, I think I'm that good. And frankly, if my clients don't think I'm that good, they shouldn't be paying me.
There's the door there. You know what? And there's that time where we have to say, I've gotten you as far as you can go, or you've gotten you as far as you can go. So please go. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with losing a client. If the fit isn't right, there's nothing wrong with losing a client.
And when did we all decide that we should always have clients for life? I mean, like, we have all been lucky to have clients that stay with us. It's funny. It's like I have clients now who are aging out of their year in Pilates Teacher Mastermind VIP, and pretty much all of them had just said, can you just fill us again for another year? Like right now, because we just don't want to go. We'll just stay with you. It's fine. But you want change in clients. It is not, and if clients are learning well, and if what they need from you is a specific skill set, then you should be able to teach them that and let them go. Like, seriously.
Right.
And then if they want to stay with you, fine.
That's it. But, again, it and that's one of the reasons why I love teaching, is because there's no end. There's always, if my curiosity is maintained, then I'm going to keep up leveling so that I can stay ahead, so that I'm continuing to be that growth factor that my curious friends and clients and students need to also continue to up level. It's this helix that just keeps going and going and going. But if we are drawing lines, this part of the work is not that great. So, we're only going to charge a little bit for it. I'm only going to look at you really, really with my most discerning eye if you're paying this much, that sort of thing. Because that's the way it translates to a customer. It translates as, this is not that great. This is really great. She is going to give me more if I do this. Well, what does that say about us?
Right. That's devaluing ourselves, our time, and our work.
It's Pilates prostitution. It's just like, because then all it is, it's numbers. It's a relationship versus a transaction.
Right. And, we're trying to build relationships.
I am.
And know that, if you have clients who you've done a great service for, I joke now because I have a client now who I see online. They're in Maryland. But her and her husband were guests at Parrot Tea right around my last year. And they showed up right after some big snowstorm here on the East Coast. He had thrown his back out shoveling snow and then immediately got on an airplane and took a boat ride.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
So he comes in, I fix him up in 24 hours. Like, that was easy. But since then, he's been connected to me on my email list and doing the exercises that I gave him to do. So when his back goes out, he just does them and he's fine. Meanwhile, I had seen his wife once when they were there. Her back went out. Not good. And now she sees me twice a week on Zoom from Maryland. Now, I haven't taught that couple in 11 years. When the back went out, I was the first person they thought of.
Well, and it gets back to the idea of we reach people where they are. If we talk about that in a Pilates studio, somebody comes in and they have not been physically active in 12 years, we're certainly not going to throw the advanced repertoire at them because we need to meet them where they are. Why wouldn't it carry on to proximity and, economics and all of these other points? Back to equity again. We meet people actually, this is more of an access piece, but we meet people where they are so that we can help them get to where they want to be. If we're not messaging it that way, and if we're not actively practicing it that way, well, then, you can have your little Pilates studio in the corner of BFE and wonder why you're not growing. Well, you're not growing because you're not stretching.
Right.
You're not reaching out.
And I talk a lot about the fact that it's okay to charge a lot of money. It's also okay to charge enough money from the folks who have it, who are paying you, so that if you want to do some volunteer work, if you want to do some free classes, if you want to do some community work with folks in your community who need it and can't afford your regular rates, you can. Because you have a little time and your money's taken care of and you actually can go help other people. It's just like putting the oxygen mask on yourself first. Because if you're struggling to breathe, you can't help anybody.
And we talk about this in Beyond the Bullshit all the time because everyone wants to do something like offer a scholarship or something like this so that they can bring other people into the fold. There's easier ways to go about it. And quite frankly, sometimes less offensive ways to go about it too, to reach people, to make your work affordable to people. And, one way to do it is just like you said, just ask or just raise your rates. I would like to offer Pilates to people in communities that may not have access to it. What I would like to do is see if any of you, my longstanding clients who really believe in what I do, would be interested in scholarshiping somebody or, paying $50 extra each month so that I can carry those services on to somebody else. Because at the end of the day, one, as the studio owner, you still need to eat. So you've got to get paid. And two, very often people are happy to share something like that. And, how many times do you hear, I just drove past this homeless guy on the corner. I don't want to give him any money because I don't know what he's going to do with it. I'm just going to give him a sandwich. Think of this as giving the sandwich to somebody that might need the sandwich. And quite frankly, you have to look at it this way too. Being online is a great way to handle this because a lot of people don't feel comfortable walking into a Pilates space because they don't have the clothes and they don't have the coif and the whole 9 yards. They are terrified, or at least, let's just say maybe they know that they won't be comfortable and they feel like they probably will not be welcomed. And I have watched this happen in real time. Honestly, even if you as the studio owner welcome these people in, your students may not. P.S.
Right.
That's your fault. That's a different story. We can talk about that later. But one way to mitigate that is to be able to offer that kind of service online, do that little bit of extra outreach, reach more people, and still give them high quality work. And you don't have to schlep anywhere to do it.
Yeah. It's like, even if you don't love teaching online, leverage online for that. Leverage online for your volunteer, leverage online for your less expensive work, leverage online for what you can. But I really, you know, so many, I don't know where did Pilates teachers get the idea that we're not supposed to make any money? I mean, and I don't think it's not just Pilates teachers. I mean, it's in service industry generally, right? And no matter, I don't give a shit about all the like celebrity teachers out there and whatever. Like, I teach celebrities. Does that make me a celebrity teacher? I don't know. Like, I don't even, but I don't care about all of that. I don't care about all of that. Our clients simply want to feel and function better. They want help getting there. This is a valuable proposition. Mm-hmm. Because people are willing to pay to get to that goal faster or easier than they could on their own. Isn't that why we all put, you know, 4 or 5 figures into our Pilates training and our certification? Because someone laid out a path to get us to teaching Pilates quicker or easier than we could if we did it on our own.
Right.
So we signed up and went through that path and then ended up with our certification.
Right.
That's all people are paying us for as Pilates teachers. So why we somehow think that, you know, we shouldn't make money from it or this isn't valuable. You know, if you're a 7-figure CEO and you have chronic back pain that stops you from traveling, dealing with your family, and working effectively, getting rid of that back pain and being functional is worth a lot of money to you.
Let's rewind. If you're a 7-figure CEO, you're not sitting looking in the mirror saying, maybe I'm only worth 6 figures. Maybe I should downgrade my wage because I'm not that good. But we as Pilates teachers do this all the time. Oh, I haven't raised, this is one I get all the time, Linda, and I'm sure you get it too. I haven't raised my rates in 8 years. Well, why the hell not? I mean, yeah, I don't understand that. How are you living? Well, I'm not actually. And how many you hear this? You're not getting paid. You're barely paying rent. Right. Because you raised your rates, but you're afraid that people are going to leave you. Let them go. You're not working for anything anyway. At this point, you're being harassed and mistreated. People get mad when you raise your rates. Exactly. I mean, I totally get that. But what's inflation right now? 5.3%. Nobody's like, you know what? I'm not going to Whole Foods because their grocery rates went up. I have to pay 5.3% more for that can of whatever it is. No, you know what? People go and they buy their groceries and they shut up because they need groceries. People that need this work are going to pay for it. And if you value yourself and you train your students to value you, you might get a hairy eyeball. Everyone's having a little bit of a battle right now with money, but you do what you need to do. And again, if you're able to leverage that and get the work into somebody else's hands, isn't that a win for everybody? Yeah.
I mean, you know, my favorite thing to say to my clients is if you doubled your prices tomorrow and half your clients walk, you'd be working half the hours for the same amount of money.
That's right. 100%.
Which is kind of a win-win for me.
To me, it's worth it. It's worth it. If you're undervaluing yourself, there's no way that you feel great when you go to work every day. Work becomes work. That's true. It's not joy anymore.
Right. And that's where, you know, I'm seeing how many Pilates teachers are we seeing in financial services, selling real estate, doing all those things.
You know, a lot of people coming off of COVID were like, I'm working, and this is how I got into opening my own place as well. It's like I built businesses for everybody else, and they're taking the great vacations. They won't even give me a day off. It's
Right.
the same type of deal. Like that, the way we value ourselves translates outward and forward. And if we don't value ourselves, then you know what? We need to go somewhere where we're at least going to be compensated, and real estate's going to do a little bit better than teaching Pilates if you're only charging $2 an hour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. I really enjoyed having this discussion. We might even have to do it again, Misty, because I think there's a lot more that you and I could be unpacking.
I love to talk. So I've enjoyed this as well. And I hope that everyone out there that's listened has enjoyed it, because it's been great catching up.
Now, talk to me about how people can get in touch with you, whether it is to do Pilates, get continuing ed, or take some advantage of your mentorship. Sure.
And if you don't mind, I'll talk to you quickly about my mentorship, Beyond the Bullshit, Mentoring for Evolution and Empowerment. It's evolved so much over the past year, because haven't we all, hopefully, evolved over the past year? But especially in this environment that we're in, where so many people want to do something. They want to be a part of the change. They want to see the faces of their studios and their friend groups and all of these things change and evolve, but they don't know where to start. That's what we talk about in Beyond the Bullshit. And we talk about equity as a core value. We talk about getting out of our way, not labeling ourselves as allies when you can't really label yourself as an ally, because who does that? You.
Right. Like other people can call you an ally. You don't get to call yourself an ally. That's not how that works.
No, it just doesn't work that way. So we talk about all of these things in a very, very safe space. One of the things that was really important to me when I started doing this, and I have my Thursday night show, Thought Flow, with Nikki Taylor Stewart as well. It was very, very important to me to create a space where people feel like they can come in and talk. And, if they don't have the right words to say, they know that they're not going to be vilified for just not having the vocabulary. So we talk about vocabulary too. All of these things that we can do to really get people to understand, hey, no one's looking for allies, because allies, it's just a word. Advocates. We're looking for advocates. We're looking for people that are out there who are wanting to see the world grow and diversify, and who really, really want to push toward equity, not equality, but equity for all.
Right.
So that's what we do with Beyond the Bullshit. And you can find information about it at Meet Misty Lynne. It's Misty Lynne with an E.com. Or if you are looking for my Pilates, it's dragonflypilates.com. Or on IG, I'm Misty Lynne Cauthen, or dragonflypilates.com there. So you can find me anywhere. I'm usually around flapping my gums somewhere.
It's pretty much like me. I'm like, people are like, where can I find you? I'm like, pretty much anywhere. Just kind of look and you'll see me. All right. Well, everybody, thank you guys so much for joining us. Once again, this was Linda Lippin from Linda Lippin Pilates with Misty Lynne Cauthen from Beyond the Bullshit. I love that. Thank you. It's so you. Dragonfly Pilates and a master teacher for Balanced Body Teacher Training. Misty, just hang out for a minute after. And everybody, I will see you guys next week, where I'm going to be coming to you with my friend Sadiq, former trainer at the Dogtown. And we're also going to be having some interesting conversations about fitness, business, and immigration. Yes. All right. I will talk to everybody soon. Bye. And